With 49 keys, no pitch bend wheel, and a simple memory record system, this is the Casio CT-470. With 61 keys, a pitch bend wheel, and a built-in sequencer, this is the Technics KN-1000. Let's see what happens when we connect these together using MIDI, the musical instrument digital interface. Hello, Dr. Vels here. In this video, I am going to demonstrate what happens when the CT-470 is controlled by the Technics KN-1000. Why have I chosen the Technics KN-1000, you may ask? Well, it is the only instrument I have which has 61 keys and a pitch bend wheel. Now, the CT-470 has a bigger brother in the CT-670, which has 61 keys and a pitch bend wheel, and I would like to demonstrate how the whole thing behaves. Also, the 1000 has a built-in sequencer, so later in the video we'll see how that works as well. I will switch the CT-470 on and put it into MIDI mode, which is the lowest setting on the slider. Just a couple of notes about my particular CT-470. There are no tops to the sliders, but they work properly, and one of the segments is missing from the left hand digit on the multi-function display, so that does actually say 00, even though it does not look like 00. I've set up the 1000 so that local is off, which means that whenever I play a note on the 1000, the only instrument that responds is the 470. I've also set up the sequencer so that local is off. I don't want to go into great detail about the settings of the 1000. I shall just cover what is necessary for this demonstration. So by default, the 470 on switch on is set to 00, which is piano 1. Because I have connected MIDI out on the 1000 to MIDI in on the 470, certain things that I do on the 1000 will affect the 470. And one of those things is the keys that I press on the 1000's keybed will translate to notes on the 470. But also I can change the sounds. Now the 1000 has a very strange way of selecting sounds. It's in a matrix format with buttons horizontally and buttons vertically as well. Now in this particular setting here, the 470 is set to 00, which is piano 1. If I go right along the row, it goes to 01, 02 and so on along there to 09. Then if I go up 1, we end up at 009, then coming left it goes back down to 000. Then up another 1, we have 10, 20 and 30. And go to the very end on the horizontal buttons, we get to 39. Now that's very unorthodox and quite useless because I cannot select all of the sounds on the 470 from the 1000. So I'm going to switch that feature off. So just go to prog change disable. Make sure that all the parts on the 1000 are set to that. I can still set the sounds directly on the 470. Another thing that the 470 does respond to very well is sustain commands. Now I do not have my sustain pedal plugged in at the moment, but I can hit the sustain button on the 1000 to activate or deactivate sustain. And now sustain is on. And the 470 sustains the note. like so. If I press start stop on the 1000 to start the rhythm, of course the 1000 is not outputting anything, and the rhythm on the 470 does not start. If I set the 470 to external clock mode by pressing echo line, I can start the rhythm from the 1000. I can also stop it like so. I can also alter the tempo on the 470 from the 1000. Like so. And the 470's tempo limit is 256, but the 1000's limit is 300. And in fact the 470 will play a rhythm at the tempo of up to 300 quite nicely. And of course it will go down to 40 beats per minute. Switching the external clock off again, we can then go back to adjusting the tempo on the 470, and the start stop button on the 1000 does not start or stop the rhythm. Next I will demonstrate the 470's response to the keyboard. So of course the 1000 has 61 keys, the 470 only has 49, but the 470 will respond to 61 keys of action. And if I transpose the keyboard, so I've transposed middle C down to G, it does loop around at the bottom, and a similar thing happens at the top end as well. The 470 only deals with notes between the lower C and the upper C of a normal 61 key keyboard. Now, does it respond to pitch bend? The answer is yes. Quite nicely too. The pitch bend is limited to plus or minus 2 semitones. That cannot be altered on the 470, even though it can be altered on the 1000. Also, the 1000 has a modulation wheel, but sadly the 470 doesn't respond to that, which would have been a nice feature. And also the 1000 has a touch sensitive keyboard, but the 470 does not respond to velocity commands. If I alter the rhythm setting on the 1000, the 470 does not respond to that either. But apart from that, it responds to 61 keys, pitch bend, sustain, and some sound selection as well. So all in all, not too bad, and not forgetting the rhythm start stop function too. Of course, in MIDI mode, the 470's tone editor does not work. Normally on the 470 you would of course have 49 keys, which gives you access to 49 percussive sounds. Of course, with 61 keys you can get additional percussive sounds. So that's the uppermost sound of a standard 470, and then we can go higher. And you get different beeps and even a clap sound as well. I'll just demonstrate the additional sounds. So that's quite a nice feature. Also, the percussive sounds will respond to pitch bend. So very nice indeed. So it can be very useful to have the 61 keys and the pitch bend as well. As the 470 is currently set to a drum sound, let's try and record a drum track. So I'm going to put it on external clock control, start up the sequencer. Now I'm using external clock so that when I press start stop, the rhythm on the 470 will begin to play, and it will give me a kind of metronome just to try and keep my timing correct. And that's it. Now interestingly, start stop did not end the rhythm track on the 470 during sequencer record, but never mind. Now we can switch external clock off. We don't need that now. So when I play the track back from the 1000's sequencer, we should hear that drum track being played by the 470. Okay, not the best drum pattern in the world, but it'll do. Now, of course, with the sequencer, we can copy measures, we can delete them, we can cut them out, we can quantize the whole thing, which may mess it up even more. My timing was terrible there. Let's have a listen, it's now been quantized. Actually turned out quite nicely. So yeah, that is very useful because you can record a track, you can even step record on the 1000, you can add pitch bends and other alterations in the step record menu, and you can quantize and cut bits out and paste bits as well, so that's nice. And of course then the 470 will play that on the sound that it's set to. So very nice indeed. In fact, the intro music to this video has been recorded just like that, using single tracks on the 1000 and played through the 470. So the 1000 sequencer has controlled the 470, and I just used a multi-track recorder, and you can hear my own drum pattern there, you can hear the pitch bend in the bass line and so on. And all of that was done on the 470. And I was quite pleased how that turned out. Now that was MIDI mode A on the 470, so now it's time to explore MIDI mode B. The CT-470 has two MIDI modes. There's mode A, which is the simple mode, which I've just demonstrated, and there's mode B, where you can have up to 4 MIDI channels at once on the 470, channels 1 to 4. Each channel has a different level of polyphony. I can't remember exactly what they are, but I think channel 2 has the lowest polyphony. To turn from mode A to mode B, we select one of these 4 buttons here, and these 4 buttons refer to the channel number. So if I press that one, we can set channel 1. And what I will do is I'll set it to organ. then channel 2 is that button there, and I'll set that to bass. I'll set it to this bass. And then channel 3 I will set to vibraphone. Channel 4 I will set to some kind of drums. Nice. So we've got a organ sound on channel 1, bass sound on channel 2, we've got a vibraphone sound on channel 3 and percussion on 4. Now the 1000 has a multi-part arrangement, and there are actually 8 parts, I do believe, that you can have. I've set poly 1 on the 1000 to channel 1. I've set bass, which is a monophonic part on the 1000 to channel 2. I've set poly 2 to channel 3 and accompaniment 1 to channel 4. If I choose poly 1 on the 1000, then I can play channel 1 on the 470. If I select poly 2, the way I have it set up here is that will play channel 3, which of course is set to vibraphone. I'm running out of notes there already. So we have to be careful with this, but yeah, that's channel 3. Then channel 2 is bass, and of course accompaniment 1 of course is drums. Now on the 1000 we can set this up in various different ways, with the poly 1, the poly 2 and the bass. I can use poly 1 all over the keyboard, I can use poly 2 all along the keyboard, and I can use bass. Now the bass part on the 1000 is always 1 octave lower than everything else. So that's worth bearing in mind. But of course I can have poly 1 on the right and poly 2 on the left. And I can change the split point on the 1000, meaning that I have, in this case, 3 different split points available to me, and I can have any sound on the left and any sound on the right, which is a vast improvement on the standalone 470, because of course that just has restrictive split voices where the voices cannot be altered and the split point cannot be altered either. But connecting to a controller which has a dynamic split point and split voices, then it's fine. And of course I can have 2 voices at the same time, so I can have, in this case, organ and vibe at the same time. And I can have 2 voices on the right simultaneously and the bass on the left. So that is quite powerful. You can see that that is very useful indeed in mixing sounds together and splitting the keyboard. Now of course this really comes into its own when we try and record something on the sequencer. Now don't ask me why that did not come through the 470 speakers, but we'll see if it's recorded anyway. There we are. A simple drum track, nothing too elaborate, but just to demonstrate. And the timing on that was all over the place, so let's quantize that, let's cheat. There we are. Yeah, let's try again. Choose the correct track that time. No, it's awful. But as a demonstration, we can then go into step record and tidy that up. In fact, the timing on that is so all over the place, I shan't bother. Let's try again. Try that. Yeah. I'll just quantize that and try and make something reasonable of it. Yeah, there we are. Got there in the end. Oh dear. Right, let's record some bass line. Wish me luck. Now that's interesting. That should not have happened. Let's just have a look. I see local was on. See, local was on the what's it there? So let's see what happens. Seems to have a double note at the beginning there. So I can just edit that. So that's that, and of course that's the percussion sound on the 470 and the bass sound that we set up playing at the same time. And you cannot do that on the 470 as a standalone instrument, so this is really useful. Now let's have some vibraphone. There's no reason why we should not quantize that. There we are. And let's record some organ. now I have that recorded, I'm going to demonstrate something else, which is another interesting feature on the 470, where we can change the volume of various MIDI channels. Now I can't remember how this is arranged. One slider does channels 2 and 3, and I think the other slider does channel 4. So let's just demonstrate that. Yeah, that slider alters channels 2 and 3, and that slider alters channel 4. So you can alter them, I suppose, in relation to the volume of channel 1, which is quite handy. Well, that's about it for this demonstration. I can't think of anything else to show you, but I think you will agree that connecting the 470 to an external controller, particularly one with a sequencer, with pitch bend and with 61 keys, really does help. And maybe you would like to try it for yourself. Of course, having a setup like this is not quite the same as having a 670, because a 670 you do have the full 61 keys and the pitch bend, and you can still use the tone editor, because you would not have to be in MIDI mode to have those features. But I imagine that all the MIDI controls on the 670 are similar to the 470. I've never tried it, but I imagine that to be the case, because it seems that the internal circuitry is pretty much the same. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this interesting and informative, and I hope to see you again another time for another demonstration.